Experiments and variables. How to correctly test your hypothesis. When you think about science, you probably think about conducting experiments. But do you know what an experiment is? And do you know how to conduct one? An experiment is a way of testing to see if an idea, a hypothesis, is true or not true. A hypothesis is a statement describing what you believe to be true. For this experiment, your hypothesis would be plants that get more sunlight grow better than plants that get less sunlight. When a scientist has a hypothesis about how something works or why something happens, they conduct an experiment to see if their hypothesis is true. But to make sure the answer they get is correct, scientists conduct or run their experiments very carefully and in a very orderly way. What if a scientist wanted to see how the amount of sunlight affected plant growth? She could just get some plants and put them by the window and watch them grow. But would this be enough? How would she know how much the plants grew? And how could she tell if it was the sun and not something else like water or temperature that helped the plants grow? And does it matter where each plant is located, or what type of plants are in the experiment, or when they were watered, or when they were planted? All of these are important questions to consider to ensure that the results of the experiment are valid. A valid experiment is one that can be trusted. Let's consider the plants we have in our experiment. What if this plant gets more sun than the others? What if this plant naturally grows slowly? What if this cactus rarely gets watered, but the other plants get watered every day? With so many different factors affecting them, it is impossible to compare the plants correctly. All of the different factors among the plants are called variables. A variable is anything that can influence the outcome of an experiment. Most experiments have a lot of variables, but for an experiment to work, you need to make sure that almost all the variables are the same type of plant. That are all the same size. They get watered the same amount at the same time. All of these things that are the same, the plant type, the size, the age, watering, etc., are called constant variables. Constant variables ensure that an experiment can focus on the question that is actually being tested. In this case, it's how does the amount of sunlight affect plant growth? There's only one thing that should be different in this experiment: the amount of sunlight that each plant receives. The scientists will carefully give each plant a different amount of time in the sun. The amount of sunlight is called the independent variable. The independent variable is the factor the scientist changes to get different outcomes from her plants. The plants will grow at different rates depending on how much sun they get. Their growth depends on the amount of sun that they get. The growth of the plants is called the dependent variable. The dependent variable changes when the independent variable changes. If the amount of sunlight changes, that's the independent variable, then how the plants grow will also change. That's the dependent variable. The growth of the plants depends on how much sun each plant gets. There's three types of variables you need to remember. The constant variable, that's all of the things that must be the same in an experiment. The independent variable is the one thing that the scientist changes to make different outcomes for what she is testing. The dependent variable is the change that occurs when the independent variable changes. The types of variables again. The constant variable in this experiment is a type of plant. They're all the same. The amount of water, they all get the same amount of water. The size of the plant, they start out all the same size. The age of the plant, they start out all the same age. And the type of pot for the plant, they're all put in the same type of pot. The independent variable, that's what is changed by the scientist, is how much sun each plant gets. The dependent variable is how much each plant grows. Again, the dependent variable depends on the independent variable. Now, all experiments have all of these different variables. So no matter what your experiment is about, you will need to carefully consider each one of them, and when you do this, all of your experiments will be great. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.